before we even get into anything new, this whole thing with Shedeur Sanders, it has really, I wouldn't say ticked me off. It has made me a little upset that people just aren't getting it. This whole thing about them keep saying that he's arrogant. And I just had to break it down, man. There's a huge difference between arrogance and confidence. And we touched on it a little bit last week, but I really want to get your thoughts on how it seems like you have the black athlete that's always arrogant, and you have the white athlete that's always confident. I'm upset because I am a black athlete.
Yeah.
When I was playing, in order for me to be able to do what I was doing, I had to have confidence.
Right.
The problem that I'm seeing is that people will take somebody's confidence, and because they have issues with that person's confidence, they will call it arrogance. And that, yeah, that's that, and that's happening with Shedeur.
That's happening with Shedeur. I knew, I could tell from some of your posts and your comments, because we communicate, that this has definitely irked you quite a bit. It's because, you're very attuned to athletics. And I know with, you being an athlete and your son being an athlete and all of that. And we both, have experienced it through the lens of race. I try to put everything into context. And what's difficult right now, it shouldn't be difficult. It's not really difficult for us. But what seems to be difficult for the greater society to have, and I hate using this terminology because it's overused, conversations about this stuff, is that it is all based, I believe, or mostly based in a paradigm of white supremacy. Okay? This is where this comes from. And it's so ingrained and inculcated in this society, I believe, that the expectation is that the successful black person should be humble, because to occupy that position of admiration and status, you are privileged to receive that. Therefore, you should understand that you should be humble because of it. Whereas the majority society, the Caucasian part of the American Caucasian, feels as though this is an entitled situation for them. This is a normal state for them. Therefore, they should be confident about it. They should be happy about it. So it seems that black athletes, especially those like Shedeur Sanders, who are who are successful and tend to celebrate that, that there's something bad about that. Now, granted, there have been examples in the past in athletics, especially, of overconfidence turning into something that's detrimental for the team and for the, for performance in general.
Okay, I want you to stop right there because I want you to rewind a little bit about that overconfidence. Roland Martin was talking about the whole situation about this not necessarily being racist, but it's a racial aspect. And you broke that down very well about the white supremacy aspect. Now, that overconfidence part, that is where, for me, a lot of people would say that Shedeur is overconfident. I just think that that's where a lot of people start to put in the lies. And they don't know the guy. Like that whole thing that kept coming up with him about the throwing his offensive line under the bus. He didn't throw his offensive line under the bus. He was asked a question, and it was associated with his offensive line. But the whole thing is this: he's been sacked more than any other quarterback the past two seasons.
Correct.
His offensive line sucks. So,
right.
So that thing that you said about the overconfidence going to affecting the team and all that, people use that exact scenario that you're talking about to say that's one of the reasons that he probably didn't get drafted.
These are two different issues. The greater issue we were talking about with the black athlete being criticized for being overconfident or being confident is just a societal one. I think that's just something that, like I said, I think it's rooted in white supremacy and the belief that black folks should be humble if they are successful. You know, right. you should bow your head and say thank you very much for applauding for me. You know, and that type of thing.
Right.
As far as him falling in the draft thing, I'm not going to pretend like I know the real reason because it hasn't been stated. I do know this though. Looking back on this, and because I try very much like you, and I think that's why we get along. I try not to just take other people's opinions about this stuff. I take it in, of course, because that's how you learn. I take in all these opinions, but then I do my own research. And then I come to my own assessment. And my question is this. This is the question. And I know that different draft classes, the talent of draft classes is different. And so therefore, you may go higher in one year than you would in another year and all of that. But we're not talking about that with Shedeur Sanders. We're talking about somebody who was thought of as possibly a first-round draft pick, not just this year, last year. Somebody who they thought might go last year. He said, no, I'm going to stay in Colorado. Then King stayed in school, put up similar numbers as he did the year they thought he was a first-round draft pick in 2004.
Better numbers. He put up better numbers.
Better numbers,
yeah.
Better numbers, certainly a better record. And fell precipitously, okay? And leading into the draft, there was no discussion about negatives other than personality. Nothing about anything that's measurable that was negative or worked against him. Okay, my question was this: I'm looking at the back. I was looking at who's somebody who's comparable, who we could say this was a double standard. So the only person not the only person, but the best example I could find was Johnny Manziel. Now, Johnny Manziel won the Heisman. He was the sensation in Texas A&M. Okay, unlike Shedeur, now I don't fault him for this because I've always been sympathetic about athletes making money in school, about college athletes not being able to earn money. But as you remember, he went out and sold autographs and all that type of stuff, and got in a little trouble for that. Even though he was able to kind of circumvent any serious repercussions for that. But he certainly didn't go into the draft with a clean slate. And, I don't know about anything that's any more overconfident than making the money sign when you score or when you throw a touchdown pass. You know what I'm saying? Dude was over the top, okay? He went in the first round. Yeah. He went in the first round. And I'm not talking about, we know what's happened since then. It's unfair to judge him on that. I'm talking about right now, just before the draft. He went in the first round with baggage, serious baggage, and one might say overconfidence and arrogance. Now, I find it hard to believe that Shedeur Sanders fell to the fifth round because of overconfidence. Now, I've heard some people, what I consider retcon it, and now by saying, oh, well, actually there were whispers before the draft that he was really not as good as they were saying, and he was really not this and he was really not that. Okay. But when I listen to this stuff, I'm saying, all right, but what doesn't add up is this. Why would you whisper that? This is Shedeur Sanders. I mean, this is one of the biggest names in football, in college football. Why? What's the secret there? Who's keeping that secret?
And why is he making more NIL money than any other college football player? Yeah.
Right. Now, so there's something else in it. Now, I tend to believe, my thing is that the overconfidence and arrogance and that type of thing, that's the easy, available excuse that you can put out there for him falling in the draft. That's the thing you can use. It's very easy to use that. I just think that there's something more political as far as his father and his relationship to the NFL and his, the way the two of them, he and his father, have related to some of the executives in the NFL. And I think that, the NFL has shown time and time again that they are willing to turn their back on a talent to make a point.
Right.
And I don't know what point they were, I can tell you how I interpret it. I mean, I don't know what point they're trying to make, but the reasons that had been given for his fall aren't satisfactory as far as I'm concerned.
No, they don't make sense. Those reasons that they're giving is just straight up BS. I've taken this personal because it's not just about sports. It goes beyond sports. Like I said, it is racial. And Roland Martin talked about that aspect of why did he fall so far down below. If you look at it, and Roland said this too, he said with baseball, hockey, basketball, you can play those pro sports outside of the US and get paid and make money. But for football, Canadian Football League doesn't compare to the NFL.
Right.
These owners, they own it. They are in charge of the plantation. And there's only one owner, the cat down in Jacksonville. So they basically, and this is what a lot of people think, we don't have any concrete evidence. We don't have any, tapes or anything of that nature between owners saying it. But when you look at this, it's like they were trying to send a message, in my opinion, to Dion.
Yeah.
And it's like there were two messages. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, you were flashy and all that because it was like when Dion refused to do some interviews because he was telling those teams that were like 12, 15, he said, I'm not even going to be around that long. That confidence that Dion had. Well, a lot of them remember that. I don't know if it is that one specific thing, but that what Dion has done at Colorado, all of his players had a 3.0 GPA or higher. That hasn't been done in years. All the good things that he's doing to not only make those players better men off the field and beyond, but making sure they understand the respect and the hard work that goes in to doing what they're doing. He's been nothing but positive.
Yeah.
But Dion, his confidence can irk people. I mean, you saw homeboy Oregon, the coach, that stuff that he was saying. All these things that they have pushed at Dion, and Dion is revolutionizing it, and they're taking what he did, and they're saying, yeah, there's a new money blueprint that Dion is creating that we're going to take, but we don't like the fact that it's Dion. So they told a lot of players when they drafted, they couldn't do that to Hunter. I mean, he was a Heisman winner. But for Shedeur, his brother, and all those other players that got drafted in the 5th round and after in Colorado, they said, hey, if you go play for Dion, don't expect to get drafted high in the NFL. That's the way I see it. Because this arrogance, overconfidence, this whole aspect, and all those BS reasons they gave that were just totally false, that just didn't add up. All of that is used to try to keep brothers, as you say, in our place.
There's a specifically, like you mentioned other sports, and you can play those internationally too. But what I think the NFL possibly is also looking at, and we're getting, it's a conspiracy type of thing, but for him to fall like that, if there are all these teams to pass on, I think it's very difficult to say that anyone who's followed sports, even on a casual fan level, followed drafts, even as a casual fan level. I mean, what's the word that's always used? There have been millions of busts in drafts, okay? So people have taken a flyer or have selected players just because they were on winning teams or they came from winning programs or their name recognition, all of those types of things, okay? So the fact that they stayed away from Shedeur all the way to the 5th round tells me there's something else involved because they've taken chances on several players. They'll even taken chances on players who have had like catastrophic injuries, who are like All-Americans in the draft, but they say maybe he'll get better, so we'll pick him. Okay, you know what I mean? Don't tell me this guy's too arrogant. What I think plays into it as well, it's not all, there's a big part, it's not all just keeping the black man in his place or this particular black family in their place. But I think the NFL wants to really guard against the threat that Deion represents. Is he's somebody who through his talent and intelligence has been able to set a goal and execute and do it. Okay? They do not want the NFL to be the NBA. The NBA is run by players. We see it all the time. I mean, look at freaking James Harden. It's run by players. They do not, and so Deion is like this. I want to coach. Boom, he goes to Jackson State, successful. I want to go to Division I. Boom, he's at Colorado. I got this and this and that, And the last thing they want to do is create when I look at other successful players, iconically in this modern age of big money football generation, you're talking about Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, even you can even talk about Beast Mode or people like that who have been able to make big money or good money out of their NFL careers and go on to be successful and do things. What haven't they done? They haven't created brand names that have been associated with football, like the Jordan brand. There's nobody wearing Beast Mode helmets. Nobody's wearing Peyton Manning cleats. That's not happening. And you don't have somebody, and so I think what they want to do is they want to just try to keep their players in their place. And the last thing they want is for Shedeur Sanders to come into the league first round and then be real successful with this father figure who has made the most of his talents in football to be productive in football. I just think they want to just keep this down because I think Deion is very aspirational. That's why I like the guy. I mean, to be quite honest, I was never a fan of Florida State. I've never been a fan of the teams Deion played on. I admire his talent. Like I said, by all indications, best cornerback that ever played in the game. The guy's great. The only time he had a bad year was when he played for my team. So I don't really, but I very much admire what he's been able to do, even with his personality, because we've seen several athletes who carry it like Deion, who are just clowns.